Back on the throttle.
This customer is getting, going to this right piston.
The same plane, just need to follow in place.
I want to maybe move that line and engage quite a bit quicker.
Back to the point where it's at 1 o'clock and 7 o'clock. 25 degrees. Back on the throttle.
This customer is getting.
Well, hi everyone. Welcome to Bob and Chad's Tech Tips, Speed Tips that we're doing every Monday night. We had rescheduled it for Wednesday night because Chad was going to get the pleasure of going on a really outstanding trip. And of course, due to the fact of the virus that people have been getting and our president came down with, Chad didn't get to go. So tell us about that, Chad. That had to have been a bummer.
Yeah, that the damn Ching Chong virus got us there again. So 2020 has been a year to forget in aspects, but also been a good year on a lot of fronts too. So it was unfortunate. I literally had my bags in the truck. We were coming to Bangor. We were getting ready to roll out. And my one buddy called me and said, "Are you going to Washington to catch COVID?" Or I didn't even know. I hadn't been on Facebook that morning yet or whatever. And then it just blew up. And the White House sent the email and said it's been postponed. And now I'm pretty sure it's been canceled. We submitted they had all 50 companies submit a video, and then they released it on the White House Facebook page yesterday, and it's kind of went viral in a bad way. But it just shows what some people's agendas are, and it's just very disrespectful that it's got to turn into what that turned into. But it's still an honor, and it doesn't matter who was sitting in the chair. It was an honor to be picked, to be recognized, and to be a part of it. And we were so close. We had a lot of great things planned that we were going to do there in Washington. Wyatt was gonna ride a wheelie across the back of the White House, and we were gonna get really cool footage and have a blast. And it didn't work out. So it is what it is. We did make Trump a really cool present, and they have said that they will let us send that to him. So, but he believes in America, whether you want to admit it or not. This is a line from one of his speeches in 2018 that made in America, with American heart, American sweat, and American pride. And that's what we do here in Bangor, Wisconsin. Whether it's a Weir's machine part, an Ultra Force machine, or a Wyatt bicycle, we're all about making cool stuff, man. And it was cool to be recognized, and we're still getting a lot of attention out of it. So it's unfortunate that we didn't get to go there and elbow bump or whatever we would have got to do there. Still an honor to be recognized for it, and we'll see. Maybe next year he'll invite 100 and give us a chance to go back. So
there you go. Well, you can always hope for that. That would have been an outstanding honor, and that business card holder that you just showed us looked pretty special. Another amazing product from Weir's Machine.
Yeah, we might have to have billet business card holders. We got the 3D printed ones that we've been selling on the website, and the aluminum one now, we got one finally designed there. So the boys did a good job. We only had a couple days basically once we got notified. So we spit them out, and my guys are, they're top notch. So when I said we got to make this cool presidential present, so they came to her and got her done. We were going to try and dip it 3 different colors in the anodizer, but it didn't work out. We were thinking it'd be red, white, and blue, but that was above their pay grade, so we went straight red. So,
well, that red looks pretty awesome.
Yeah,
pretty cool. Well, and then of course, hopefully, when there's a big get well goes out to our buddy Rex Merritt. He's actually in the same situation with the same thing as our president. And sounds like he's been kind of under the weather here for a couple of weeks. So Rex, if you're watching or whatever, we sure hope you get well and wish you a speedy recovery from that nasty stuff. I was fortunate about 2 weeks ago. I had a situation where, I was having a little bit of problem breathing. And of course, when you call the doctor's office and you say anything about breathing, you're switched to another group of individuals, and you go in and you get these blood tests taken, and everybody's kind of in a hazmat suit. And so I found out that I didn't have it, and I found out that I have never had it. I had both tests taken, which, of course, Chad, you know as well as I do. My daughter Amy came down with it after we got back from Pennsylvania, and how we both rode in the car with her, and alone sat beside her on the airplane. We didn't get it, or at least I didn't get it. And I'm like, well, that's pretty cool. I was pretty sick afterwards, but I think it was just the exhaustion of doing the show and stuff like that. And so, and speaking of that, we've got our all of our schools. Well, 3 of them or 4 of them are up online. We're working on our Pennsylvania school. We're still planning on going to Pennsylvania that first weekend in March. Right now, the place where we did it at, they actually closed it shortly after we were there, and hasn't been reopened yet. And so we're trying to find a good location to do that at. And I'm quite sure our buddy at Close Racing there, Joel, he'll fix us up with something somewhere. So we've got those all coming up. The 2-link one, of course, is January 16th, 15th, and 16th. The 4-link one is the 5th and 6th. Stock car one is February 25th or 26th and 27th. And like I said, we're working on that one. We're also working on, there's a possibility we might do a 1-day school here in Des Moines at the Iowa State Fairgrounds. Billy Davis Jr. has his swap meet that he has had every year on March 19th. I mean, not March, December 19th. And where we used to have that, which I've been going to that 4-H building probably for 30 years, and it's not really been one of those outstanding buildings. I mean, it's nice, but they've completely the Iowa people completely remodeled it. It's got some classrooms in it. It's actually a pretty nice event. So we're looking at that, kind of getting things worked out with Billy to see if that's something that will work for us or not. Otherwise, if you haven't heard about our schools, make sure you go to racetechinfo.com. That's kind of our winter project. Chad and I have a pretty good time doing that, and we usually get Ben Baker involved from AFCO and Kelly Schreierock from Skyrocket Race Cars. He's going to probably be for sure at the stock car school. We're still working on the 4-link school with his schedule. So it'll be pretty exciting. Paul Berger will be here for the stock car school, and we're just putting everything together. What else is new and exciting at Weir's Machine?
Well, we're excited too. I got a new product for us tonight too, but I want to talk about our big news. I think we're all trying to figure out how to get in touch with the people more, and with what's going on, a lot of our shows have been canceled. So along the lines of that 1-day show you got there, we're actually going to do a virtual trade show, I guess you would call it, an online product showcase, kind of similar to what you and I are doing here. January 2nd, it's a Saturday. We're going to have it here in our showroom at our distribution facility, and we're going to have like a mini trade show where we got all of our products. I think we got Corey Drips coming to film it, so we're going to be able to interact live. We're going to have all the guys that would be at our trade show booth, so we'll have chassis builders, race car drivers, crew chiefs, maybe a shop guru or two, and kind of a round table, talk a lot about our new products for 2021 and what we got going on. And we got a lot of new stuff, man. It's very exciting. The new stagger stick is going real well. That's working good. We got our Gen 3 manual Ultra Force machine that I think we're gonna blow some minds away with that thing. So I'm just excited to be a part of it, man. It's a lot of cool stuff going on here, and So we're looking forward to this off season with the things that you and I got going, and this virtual show, and just gonna be a fun off season, I think.
Well, you've always been known as a young, aggressive innovator, so that's pretty exciting. That's a great idea. I mean, how could you go out and reach people better than that? I mean, people that you would possibly see at the PRI show, and now you'd be able to show them, talk about your products right there in front of them, and like I said, it'd be kind of same situation as what we're doing here. That's pretty cool. That's actually pretty exciting.
Yep.
Matt Morrow's got a question. Where's the closest sport mod school to Omaha? Well, it would actually be the school here, January 15th and 16th, here at our store in Ames. Omaha is only about a 2.5-hour drive from here. We've got lots of nice schools or lots of things on hand. And Chris commented you can buy the school online. It's last year's school, but I don't anticipate there's going to be. I mean, there's going to be different stuff, but still that school is pretty current. Question for Chad on a Shaw style 2-link cage. How far down and up are those front holes?
I'm gonna have to go measure that.
Okay. Well,
Hold on.
okay.
Let me read that.
Dustin.
I'll go measure
okay.
that quick.
Dustin, bought my first Shaw car. What are some of the do's and don'ts of things to do for the 4-bar cars? Well, once again, Dustin, make sure you talk to your chassis builder. Jeff Taylor could definitely help you out. And Kevin Shaw is outstanding with this stuff. I mean, he's extremely knowledgeable and would be able to help you on a lot of things. The biggest thing is following their recommendations, because everything is designed with a specific angle in mind, which has a lot of effect on how the car steers. Then the big thing is once you know what your general setup is, whatever you do, don't go in and throw the whole kitchen sink at it in a couple nights. The biggest thing I can tell you that's the most important is to make small changes. The 4-link setup is very reactive, so you can change a bar, raising and lowering a bar or something that you will definitely feel. So since it's your first 4-link car, like I said, those cars drive very nice. And we'll kind of get Chad's input here a little bit. But like I said, they drive really good. It's the old adage back in the day where we talk about, say, for example, if, the car's a little bit free, maybe there's too much traction on the right rear, so you need to induce traction on the left rear. One of the things that I've always kind of went as a rule of thumb is the upper bars have a little more influence on traction. Lower bars have a little more influence on steer. So as an example, if the car was a little free getting into the corner, you could actually drop the right trailing arm down on the frame. Now, keep in mind, if you do make adjustments to the 4-link, anything that you do on the rear end is going to have twice the effect that you would have on the frame. So keep that all in mind too. So the question, let's go back to where I can read the question. The question, Chad, is Dustin bought his first. Okay, I guess we're going to go to this one, Chad. Jacob has the question for Chad is on the Shaw style 2-link cage. How far forward and up are the holes?
I assume this is the one you're talking about. So it's 2.5 inches forward from the standard holes, and it goes up to 3 inches below center line.
Cool. I started answering Dustin's question. Bought his first Shaw car. What are the do's and don'ts of for his 4-bar car? And I basically talked about the fact that number one thing is follow the chassis manufacturer's recommendations as your starting point. They can't help you if you try a bunch of different stuff and then you don't communicate that to them, because once again, that's part of the reason for buying a factory car is for tech support. The other thing I mentioned the fact about that, anytime you do something on the rear end, it's about double the impact of the response. And the thing with the 4-link car, it's relatively sensitive to changes. So a small change is a noticeable change. What would you like to add to that?
Yeah, I mean that's the exact points. You want to align yourself with great people. So you got Shaw race cars. You pick a good shock company to work with, a good component company to work with, and then you use them people and you stay in that notebook with those people and focus on what you need to win races, not what Joe Blow's got his top link at 64 degrees. That doesn't mean it's going to work for your car. So when you're new to the sport, new to the 4-link cars, the biggest thing is just to get comfortable and then, make small changes and don't change everything but the driver. So definitely align yourself with great people. Stay in your notebook. Take really good notes. Come to Bob's school and learn. That's the biggest thing.
And the thing of it is, and that's like I tell people, they kind of think about the expense of the school, and I understand it that it's an expense, but as an example, I'm just going to give you a couple examples. Jorge Garcia came to our school from out in Colorado, and he won his first Sport Mod feature win at I-76 Speedway in Fort Morgan, Colorado. And he complimented the fact that he doesn't feel that it ever happened if it wouldn't have been for what he learned at the school. I talked to a gentleman when I was at Marshalltown a couple weeks ago, and he came up and he was just so thankful and just kind of giddy. And at first I was kind of wasn't sure what he was excited about. And then he explained the fact that he had come to the school last year, and he said the year before he hadn't made an A main. And he made all the A mains this year, and actually ended up running, had a couple seconds and some top 5 finishes. And a lot of times, we recognize the people that win, and we forget to recognize the people that, you can still have a pretty darn good season and not win a feature. I mean, if you end up in the top 5 every night, top 2 or 3, you're probably going to end up being a track champion. So, you might not have the wins, but the championship was well worth the expense. And when you look at, if it improves your position 2 or 3 spots over the course of a season, you're going to pay for the school. So plus the fact that your humor is going to be a whole lot better if you're finishing better, and it's just going to be a whole lot more fun. Chuck's got a question. He says, please explain the zero indexing birdcage. I see that your catalog shows zero index cages. Is zero indexing just getting the bubble level in the cage centered at ride height? Go for it, Chad.
So, Chuck, you can go back and watch about every episode of this. We talk about it almost every week. The zero index it simply takes the bind out of the suspension. There's a lot of common misconceptions. So the cage is still set somewhat the same as you would. So at ride height, we set it level or 3 degrees into the spring. That's indexed into the spring. So the zero comes from when the bars are moved and clocked. So you move the top rod back on the frame and cage, bottom rod forward on the frame and cage. Theoretically, when the car hikes and the cage falls, the 4-link rods are at 6 and 12, meaning perpendicular to the world or the zero. A lot of people think that because it's zero index means like it doesn't index as it's going through motion, and that is wrong. I had some guys that tried to set the bars up goofy and make that thing not rotate when it's falling, and that's not the case. So it's definitely just something to work with. You can't just buy the plates and move the bars and kiss the trophy queen. It's not that simple. So it takes the bind out so that when the car goes through the motion and the 4-link rods get to that point where they're virtually straight up and down and they're in bar lock like that, it just takes that and relaxes that so that the spring and shock can do their job. So once the suspension becomes rigid and you're on a pogo stick, basically, yeah, you have a ton of drive angle and you have a ton of traction, but it's very instant. As soon as you blow that tire off, you're done. So it just puts compliance in the suspension. It's definitely something that I would run all the time, and I would make my car balance with it just because the car won't be bound up in bar lock. So that's the basics of it. Bob, you got anything to add there?
Well, and like I said, from my experience, I would agree with Chad 100%. I would definitely put it on. Now, once again, like Chad said, it's not a bolt-on piece of magic. There's a lot of setup that kind of goes with it. So, whether you're buying this stuff from Chad or you're buying it from us or you're buying it from your supplier, you need some help understanding because you're going to have you're going to end up probably softening your right front spring because the idea is to get it over on the front end. You're going to make a couple changes on the right rear, and there's some other things that you're gonna do to it. But when you get it right, it is so tunable. I mean, it is so tunable. But it's just not a deal where, like I said, you just don't bolt that one thing on and expect the world. There's about 6 components that go with it, and if you do all 6 of them, the world's there.
Yeah.
It's very quick. Definitely has a lot more corner speed. It's amazing what taking that bind out of that left upper rod actually does to the car, because the car is just so much freer that it can do so many different things, and it's so much more responsive in the middle of the corner. So it's definitely a good thing. Make sure make sure. Let's see here, just a second. Chuck, make sure you read the article that's coming out in Speedway Illustrated. Both Bob and Chad are in that article talking about zero indexing stuff, along with some other chassis builders and some other people. So it's going to be a great article, and it's definitely, if you don't have a subscription to Speedway Illustrated, I'd definitely get one and make sure you get that issue. Jared's got a question. What changes, if any, would you recommend when adding a 2-inch spoiler to a USRA B mod? Well, the car is going to tighten up on you on corner entry. In my opinion, a spoiler is the cheapest piece of traction you can possibly put on a race car because it's free air. The car will actually drive into the corner a little deeper. By doing that, it's going to be a little bit tighter getting in, so you're probably going to want to free it up a little bit. It would be my biggest suggestion is, even though it's a 2-inch spoiler, believe it or not, a 2-inch spoiler is pretty big. When you put the spoiler on, I would run the spoiler probably straight up and down to get the maximum effect out of that spoiler. No reason to lay it down because there's not enough drag on that size spoiler, so you need to get as much drag as you can. Maybe this is some information. Hey, Bob and Chad can tell you all the guys that came to your school in New York have had their programs stronger in 2020. Can't wait to do another year next year, and thanks, guys. Well, and Joel, we actually had just I talked about that at the very beginning, that we're planning on doing the school out there again next year. Be the same as last year, the first Friday and Saturday in March. We just need to get a location. The place that we were at last year was closed, and hopefully maybe by March of next year it'll be opened up, because that was a very nice place, and those people did an outstanding job of treating us really well. But once again, anybody who's considering coming to those schools, for God's sakes, make sure you're not sick. If you're sick, I'll send you your money back. No problem.
Yeah. Remember that when we went to that school out there, we went to Zippo and Case?
Oh, yes.
Case Knives was going to be at the White House.
Oh, really? Awesome.
And so was Hoosier Race Tire.
And who's your race?
We didn't see the list until after it went down, and then they sent us the list of all 50 companies, and that was pretty cool. Hoosier Race Tire was on there, and then Case Knives was on there, and that was one of the parts I was looking forward to the most, was interacting with these other people that bleed America just as much as we do, and to explore their products and check them out. They're all on the White House website. They make awesome stuff, and I already bought stuff from 2 of the companies, so some pretty neat companies that were going to be a part of that day.
Yeah, actually, I think if I'm not mistaken, Chad left a fair decent amount of cash there at that knife store, if I'm not mistaken.
I'm all about American-made stuff, man, and them knives are so cool. And I bought one for myself, one for Austin, and then I bought 2 more, I think, and gave them away to my employees, and bought some Zippo knives and gave them away to the employees. So I'm actually a pretty decent boss. I love giving presents out, and we have our weekly team meetings, and I like to give cool things away. So.
Hi, Greg. How's everything going down there in Texas? I haven't talked to you forever. I hope things are still going well. Matt Morrow, what degree would you run a sport mod spoiler? Well, if I was running a sport mod spoiler, the full 5-inch spoiler, we're probably laying it back. Well, from 90, it would actually probably be about a 50-degree angle, I'm guessing, 50 to 60-degree angle, something like that. To be honest with you, I've got a car out in the shop. I definitely could go check that out. We've actually got, we've been really fortunate, because usually after the Super Nationals, everything kind of dies to almost minimal. Where this year, we just have not. I mean, Rocky's been super busy, been working on cars out there, and a lot of people are getting their stuff to us early because, it's a one-man shop. So I mean, we're only able to do so much. So people have learned that over the years, that it's a good time to get things in here earlier. The other thing that's been nice about, and even the shop business has stayed pretty consistent, because there's still so many specials and stuff going on, and so Bobby's had a lot of rebuilds and been changing a lot of stuff. So other than the phones maybe been a tad bit quieter, it's been a really pretty busy October already. Travis has got a question. What is your opinion or preference on tire sipe pattern on a G60 in the IMCA? What do you think works best? Well, it's a little bit complicated to talk about here, but I'll try to do my best as explaining it without diagrams. Keep in mind, if you want a tire to have side bite, you sipe around the tire. So as the tire rolls, you would put sipes in it in that way. If you want the tire to have forward traction, you sipe across the tire. And I'm still, regular sipe gun, as it goes across, like the right rear, we will actually do, okay, Garrett just actually went out and checked out that spoiler. 73 degrees is what the spoiler is on 2 cars that we have out there. But anyway, and then the front tires, I actually sipe across the tire after I turn the tire 15 degrees. So what that does is, when you're in the corner and you're counter steering just a little bit and you get on the brakes, it actually gives that right front tire more stopping power, and that works very well. Left rear tire, same thing. You might not need to do as many around the tire, but I definitely go across the tire, and I think that works really well. But anyway, back on my original story before I got sidetracked, and I do that from time to time. We got 2 cars out in the shop. One of them is a used car, and one of them is a guy that brought his car down here to have us do a bunch of refab on it. These guys both race at 141 Speedway, and they both have white bodies with yellow plastic. So when you go out to the shop, like I told Rocky, I said, well, did you like this one so much that you decided to build this one this way too, or what's the deal? And he told me that. He says, these guys actually, I don't know, he says, I don't know if they really know each other well, but he says they have identical looking cars. And so I thought that was pretty comical. Guys, can you talk about the difference and maybe benefits of a divorced spring and shock setup on the right rear of an IMCA mod versus the coilover setup? Well, I can tell you the difference is when you have a right rear coil spring. Well, our old buddy Scott Fitzpatrick is even joined in. Hi, Scott. When you have a coilover spring and the shock mounted behind, when the car actually goes to roll over, it's going to index into the spring. Well, if the shock and spring are together, you're indexing into the spring. Now, if you move that shock behind the housing, when the car goes in and rolls over, you're going to actually index out of the shock. So the valving sometimes can be a little bit different, but you're going to find that you're going to have 1 inch left shock travel with the shock behind the housing by itself. And that's just because of the indexing travel, which, like if you're getting 3 inches of travel in the front, you can expect 2 inches. Now you're going to panic and you're going to go, oh my God, what went wrong here? Well, the car's still moving the same amount. It's just with the Birdcage indexing into the shock, it indexes into the shock approximately 1 inch more than what the travel actually is. So that's the easiest way that I can actually explain it. So do you have some other new products, Chad, that you wanted to show us?
Scott says 0 equals checkered flag.
Well, Scott said it. That's a fact, man.
We've released a bunch of cool sheet metal tools in the last month or so. This is our new one. This is our WM466. This is our sheet metal line tool, so you can draw straight lines on the sheet metal with your Sharpie. It's kind of hard to show with very few hands, but so the Sharpie goes in the hole there, and then you can guide that along the edge of the sheet metal and flip it to your whatever your desired bend line or cut line is. So that's just another little trick tool for doing sheet metal work there. We got 1/2, 3/4, 1, and 1 1/4 links there on that one. So
awesome.
Trick little tool.
Well, I bet you if Rockstar's watching this, which I'm pretty sure Rockstar is probably not online tonight, because it's actually his 3rd year wedding anniversary. Him and Liz have been married 3 years, and she's what you'd classify as very pregnant and patiently waiting any day now for her new baby boy to come into the world. Now, there's some of us that say that she might have got herself into more than she wanted to, because she could have 2 Rockies. And of course, that would be fun for everybody. But anyway, Rocky does an awesome job, and he works very hard out there. And when you showed me these tools earlier, I forgot all about it. We definitely, anybody that does sheet metal, that's a must-have. And they're not, what's the price of it? They're not very expensive.
That aluminum one's $15. I think the corner markers set together, I think them 3 are probably $20 for all 3 of them, the molded ones.
Oh, awesome. Cool. Well, Fred Ryland already just said he needs to order one, so we got one sold there for you. Aaron, on an IMCA stock car, how soft is too soft on front springs? Well, Aaron, it just all depends on who you talk to. There's some guys out there that are running some really soft springs on stock cars, like 800 pounders. In my opinion, you have to keep in mind the weight of the vehicle. So, you're talking about a car that's 2,950 pounds. And we're also talking about something that's got a very high center of gravity. So that being said, I had the customers that we work with have not had great success with soft springs, and that's another one of these deals where, okay, you heard your buddy across the infield there, he's running a soft 800-pound spring. However, he forgot to tell you what his shock is, because more than likely, if he's running that soft a shock or soft a spring, he's got a lot stiffer rebound shock, probably more gas pressure in the shock. So it's like Paul Harvey always used to say, there's always the rest of the story. And that's the thing when we talk to people, if you go softer, you're going to probably need to stiffen up the compression of the shock to accommodate that. Jeff's got a question on any advice about approaching sponsors. Go for it, Chad.
Honor your commitment. I get hundreds, if not thousands, of sponsorship requests, and being a manufacturer, and what I said 5 minutes ago about giving back to my employees, I love giving back to the racer. I give products, certificates to I don't know how many different sanctioning bodies, and we get approached all the time for sponsorships. And a classic example is I had a sponsorship, and then I showed up at the racetrack and there's no decal. I mean, seriously, how difficult is it? So approach the sponsor and then promise what you promise to give them, actually achieve that. So at least honor the commitment. And, if you're a reputable person and do a good job at the racetrack, and then actually promote their product. I mean, you don't come to Weir's Machine and say, oh, you got to give me this tool because I'm the next Jeff Gordon. We really don't care about that. We want you to go out and be an ambassador for the brand and say, hey, this company is really good and they make great products, and you should give them a look. That's why we have factory pilots, and why we align ourselves with great race car drivers, and we need you people out there, being brand ambassadors for us, basically. And when we give somebody a deal and they don't honor the commitment, that tends to piss me off just a little bit. So just, approach the sponsor, be honest, and give them what you promised them. So, and be a good brand ambassador is all us manufacturers really want. And I'm sure you have people on Shock Deals, Bob, and you would agree 100%. If you got a good set of shocks from Bob, and you're, maybe this other guy's shock's better, and then you go and use that illegitimately behind his back, and you're in one of the biggest markets where they go back and forth. And
oh, geez.
Honor your commitment, and your sponsors will take care of you. I guarantee you that. If you get a deal from Weir's Machine and you're out there selling products, I'm gonna know it, and I'm gonna take care of you. So that's the biggest.
And you hit the nail on the head. I mean, it's the same thing with us, that that guy that out there mentions the fact that, hey, tell your buddy about this, tell your buddy about that, or the guy that's out there promoting us mentions us in an interview, or whatever the case is. Anything that they do, especially a logo or whatever, that's extremely important. The other thing that's important is you're our sales guys. I mean, the racers talk all the time. So, I mean, they know how good something is. They also know if it's not so good. So, I mean, it's, I don't have a problem helping the guy. And I'll guarantee you, if we've got a customer, even if we might not have initially helped him, but he's a good representative of our product,
we watch.
He's gonna get extremely great service. I mean, it's just one of those deals where, I hate to say it, but it's the old adage that if you have two options, you're gonna lean towards the one that is appreciative of what you do. And that's the biggest thing in this industry, is just be appreciative to people. I mean, people just don't have any idea how many hours you're at the shop every day, how many hours we've worked, and how many miles we've traveled around the country to meet our customers and stuff like that. A lot of people are home watching TV. So once again, honor the people that are helping you and doing what you can do. Question is, how soft of a springs are you running on a sport mod front end? Kind of depends on the front end itself. As a rule of thumb, a 500 left front, 550 right front. We've found, we've done some experimenting with our 2021 car. Part of that, I can't say 100% sure, but we have ended up going softer on the right front with that car to help that car turn a little better. We've also, when we built that car, there was some things that we did to increase the traction. So we're kind of in that mode now where did we do something to increase too much traction and so we lost the front end, or did we do something to the front end that helped it not do the job that it's doing? But for the most part, I'm very happy with the car. You get the car by itself and it's got way more speed through the center of the corner, but I just don't know if in a crowd it's as comfortable as it was. So we're working on that stuff. So once again, if the car's just not getting over on the right front, softer right front spring will definitely help you. If you get too soft with the sport mod, you're going to cost yourself some traction. It's just the way it is. Ryan, is anti-dive more important on the metric front end than a Chevelle clip? Well, I can't really say that it's more important on either one, but in answer to your question, yes, it would be more important on the metric stub. There's just some different things on how the lower A-frames are mounted on the metric stubs and the upper control arms. So yeah, it would definitely be more important. And for those of you who might not know what anti-dive is, that's basically when you look at, say, you look at a car, the right front A-frame. The front of the A-frame is up higher than the back of the A-frame. So what that does is when you go into the corner and you get on the brakes, it kind of actually makes that A-frame not really bind up, but it creates a little bit of spring load to the point where it makes the car feel like it's got a little stiffer right front spring in it right initially on the brake. Can you guys talk about adjustments of the right rear birdcage indexing of it into out of the spring or level on the an IMC and modified what it does when to and when not to? You catch all that, Chad?
I think so. So the right rear cages, obviously you don't get nearly the movement on the right rear cage as you do the left rear cage, but there is a tremendous amount of timing there, and most of the timing is corner entry. So we'll make changes to the index to stiffen the rate of that spring on entry or to soften the rate of the spring on entry. No different than putting a softer or stiffer spring in there. Just when that cage indexes, it builds rate either faster or slower than a different adjustment. So it's kind of just a little bit of a timing, that split second into the corner to increase that rate or decrease that rate.
And what Chad's talking about is when the car goes into the corner and it rolls over, okay, then as it rolls over and the cage changes its timing, it's going to index into the spring. Well, so then now you've got the spring being indexed into it, and then you've got the actual roll of the right rear coming down on it. So it's basically spring stiffness. Well, when you have spring stiffness, now the thing is by making these small adjustments, we can create how fast that stiffness affects the car or how slow it might affect it. And depending on, like on a big high bank racetrack, you might not want it to be real reactive. On a short little stop and go racetrack, you probably would want to increase the reactiveness of it. What do you recommend for shocks for a driver that likes a lot of feel in the right rear, a lot of hike in the left rear? Also, what springs? Well, keep in mind I do need to keep somewhat bias on this. And Bobby's actually probably with the sport mod stuff. On a right rear, we actually don't. I would actually lean towards a slightly stiffer spring on a sport mod with a softer shock. Reason being is because it's all about loading the tire. So when we go into the corner with the stiffer spring, when the car rolls on it, it's going to put more load into the tire. It's the old example of the fact the stiffer spring gets the weight. So when that spring's compressing and it's stiffer, it's going to load the tire harder. Now, it's just like we just talked about the birdcage indexing. Now we just talked about the birdcage indexing, and we were talking about changing or increasing the speed. Well, that's kind of what the shocks are. They are a timing device. So we want the car to get in and get on the right rear quickly and get off the right rear quickly. So, we run a little softer shock with a little stiffer spring. And when I'm talking about stiffer, we've got guys on right rears of 225s. We've also got some guys on 250s. And the average shock is usually like a 3 compression type shock, something that's a little softer, more reactive. If you're on a racetrack that's really fast, like say Fairmont, Minnesota, or some big, fast swooping corners, even Boone is fast enough that you still probably would want more of a 4-valve on the right rear, just because you don't want to get it over there too fast. Looking for any info, Logan has a question, looking for any info on the front clip on a sport mod. How far do you turn the right side? Well, it depends on how you actually measure that, but if you actually measure it at the wheel, it ends up being right around 1/2 to 5/8 of an inch. Some guys have went more than that. Some guys have went less. If you're going to turn the stub, I believe you need to at least turn it 1/2 an inch to be able to notice that there's any difference. And it's still going to be a minute difference. And what I can actually tell about the consistency of the cars with the turn stub have a tendency to be a little freer getting into the corner. The non-turn stubs or the squared up cars can tend to be a little bit tighter getting into the corner. Now, it doesn't mean that they don't both work very well. It's just setup wise, that's kind of the difference when you're tuning one versus the other. That's kind of what you do. Chad, are you drinking whiskey in that cup?
Water.
Yeah, same with me. Water. It's Wednesday. We're halfway through the week. If it was Monday, maybe.
Well, I'm heading to the racetrack here as soon as we're done. So the Oktoberfest races are going on. So
that's right.
In about a half hour, it'll be whiskey. So
there you go. All right. A good friend of mine let me borrow your videos for the sport mod. Bob, I have to say it's the most help I've received, even though I'm running an A mod. Thank you very much. Well, and Ryan, we do have the one available for the A mod also. So if that's something that you'd be interested in, just go to our website at racetechinfo.com and we can sure fix you up. Joe's got the question, assuming everything else stays the same, bar angles, trail, etc., will lengthening the wheelbase of a sport mod change handling characteristics? Most definitely. Now, however, with that question, are you talking about lengthening the wheelbase equally? If you lengthen the wheelbase equally, it's, if you're going 1/4 of an inch or something like that, you're not going to tell the difference. If you lengthen it an inch, the car is going to be a little bit more, I want to use the word lazy, but that's not the word lazy. It's going to be slower to react. Sometimes, with rookies and stuff, longer wheelbase cars, our modifieds that we built for years were 109 3/4 inch wheelbase cars. It wasn't till probably 2006 that Harris Auto Racing actually even built a 108. Now 108 is the minimum wheelbase, and so that still seems to be pretty consistent. Our GRTs are a little bit longer than that. Well, guys, we've got 10 more minutes. If there's anything else that you can think of. Oh, yeah. Did you see my hat I was sporting here? The old Iowa State Cyclones put it on the Oklahoma boys last weekend, winning by a touchdown.
What kind of car do they drive?
I think they carry a funny-looking football that doesn't roll.
I'm kidding.
But anyway, thought I'd mention that. That's why supporting local team here in Ames. First time in many, many, many years that they've actually beat Oklahoma at the stadium here. They've beaten Oklahoma at Oklahoma, but it's been many years since they've actually done it here on the home court. The other thing I could talk about is my fishing. I did go fishing this morning, caught a couple fish. That was pretty good. Last Friday, I went to West Lake, which is a lake in Osceola, Iowa, with my son-in-law. And man, it was just bonsai, wild, big bass. Now, I only caught about 3, but keep in mind, I'm actually not a fisherman. I'm a person that goes fishing. And I haven't qualified to that fisherman yet. And but my son-in-law, he had to knocked out 10, 12 of them. It was pretty amazing. They were all pretty good. Okay, Chad's got a question. He says, traction is easy. Speed is traction is the goal. Just saying thank you, and Chad, for putting this live on weekly. I appreciate it. Also for sharing the knowledge. It's very helpful. You know, and that's one of the things too, that it's pretty awesome about the fact that, and I know you experience this, Chad, as much as I do, but I don't. Well, the guy at the Super Nationals that qualified for the Super Nationals in a home-built car. You went to the tech area. Tell us what he had to say.
He was wound up. I'd never met him. I didn't even know who he was, and I just congratulated him on making it. And he was pretty excited. And I was walking away, and then he said, "Hey, come back over." And then he thanked me for what we do, and told me that it really improved his game, and then that's why he made the show there at the Super Nationals. And it's that kind of stuff that keeps us going here, I think. Am I right? I mean,
well, yeah, that's the thing. That I mean, it goes back to that deal. Show appreciation. I mean, if you show appreciation, it makes it so much fun for the people that are doing it. And that's the thing. We have a good time with this. And had a good old boy from Tennessee today. He says, I watch your all shows up there every week, and man, he says, really changed my whole race program, and I'll be watching tonight. So I kind of had to chuckle. I'm like, all right, that sounds good.
Pretty solid accent there, Bob.
Well, I tried. I mean, best I could do. He was much better at it, kind of a natural. Aaron's got a question. How much pinion angle do you recommend on an IMCA stock car? Well, in my opinion, 5 to 7 degrees. They still steer quite a bit. When you're running a left rear at a 20-degree angle, left rear trailing arm at a 20-degree angle, and a right rear at 0 to 4, the car steers quite a bit. And when you get steer in the car, it actually creates a lot of pinion movement. So you got to account for that. I would err on the side of a little more pinion angle than less. That way we can keep our old buddy Pat in business too, because he sells special U-joints for those guys that want to run more pinion angle. And but that's that's in my opinion. If you're running a 100-pound spring in a left rear in a sport mod, what spring would you run in the right rear baseline? Well, when you go, keep in mind the car still needs to have X amount of spring. So if you soften one spring, there's a pretty good chance you're going to have to stiffen another spring. And with that being said, probably in that 250 range, depending on the racetrack, probably in that 250 range is about about where you need to be. So, well, we've got 5 more minutes. We've got time for probably 1 or 2 more questions. If there's any other questions out there.
Stock car takeover.
What? Oh,
stock car takeover at 50,000 at Batesville, and them things are cool. We actually had a stock car chassis builder here today. We were working on some new stuff for the 2021 sniper cars. So we had John and Elijah Zievenberg in here, and we were working on some new stuff for the sniper chassis for next year. So that was kind of cool.
Awesome. Well, I'll tell you what, they're getting more popular and more popular and more popular. They put on a good show. I enjoy watching those guys race. They take racing really seriously, and I don't know whether that's because those fenders are slightly covered or what the case is, but they definitely, it's pretty interesting. And $50,000 stock car race, that's gonna be very, very interesting. Mike's got a question. Do you guys have a set date for the setup class in Pennsylvania with Joel Smith? Just a second here. I can actually tell you. Bear with me a little bit. Oh, yeah. And I mentioned that December one we were working on. I think I might have said the 19th. I meant the 12th. That's when Billy Davis Jr.'s got his swap meet trade show in the Iowa State Fairgrounds in Des Moines. Back on task. I used to have trouble focusing on. Garrett, would you look up what the first weekend in January or in March is? It's usually like the 5th or 6th or something to that effect. Well, I'll get you that answer here very quickly. Matt, I doubt that Kelly's going to be coming to the sport mod. I definitely will talk to him about it. His time, in business is very good, and so his time is getting used up. So we'll just have to see what he's got to say. Chris, what's your opinion on spring rate? Second, I gotta get a little closer here. What is your opinion about more spring rate in the front end on a half mile track compared to a quarter mile? Definitely. Anytime you increase speed, you probably need to increase spring rate and very possibly shock rate too. Them stock cars are a good show because they're only ones left with real motors. Ha ha ha. Yeah, I'll tell you what, that I got to listen to that number 3 stock car a few times this year, and I'll tell you what, that is the nicest sounding thing that goes down the straightaway. I'm like, man, that is thunder. That's the good old days of thunder. I can't disagree with you, Dustin. It's so cool to hear that sound and hear those cars pulling up off the corner. That's pretty cool. When you index right rear 4 degrees, does it affect the car coming off the corner?
After watching all the videos, that right rear cage is pretty much, when you're at max compression on that right rear, it's not really moving that much. So that index on that right rear is that initial movement onto the right rear, into the corner, into compression, and it doesn't do a whole lot on exit, I don't feel.
March. Yeah, I would agree with you, because once it's max compression, it's not changing, because actually the indexing will actually start to go away as the car raises back in height. The indexing will actually go away. So I don't think that 4 degrees is going to have any effect on it up off the corner. Well, guys, we're at the end of the show. We appreciate it. Oh yeah, the date for the Pennsylvania school would be March 5th and 6th. We just don't have an actual location isolated yet. But anyway, that's the date for that, and we'll
missed one there with Jacob asking about the metric frames. they're getting hard to find, and I think they're trying to get that AFCO. Is AFCO working on one, or is that?
Yeah, to my knowledge, AFCO is actually making or in the process of doing a front metric frame for the stock cars. And I don't know what the process is on that. That'll be a good thing for me to call my old buddy Ben tomorrow. I haven't talked to him. Sounds like he went fishing this weekend and camping and a whole bit too.
Hey, yeah.
Yeah.
Fishing's cool. I've been trying to tell you for years, but you just finally woke up.
Yeah. Well, the pictures you sent me over the weekend, that was a pretty nice looking lake. So
That's the Mississippi River, Bob.
the Mississippi River looked like a lake.
Bob asked me for crappie tips on this weekend, so I sent him the jig I was using and the picture of the live well full of them.
So how did Mr. Big Fish do this weekend?
Well, he didn't win any categories, but he caught a few.
Yeah, we've nicknamed Chad's number one son, Mason, his oldest son, not number one, but his oldest son, Mr. Big Fish, because he's the one that lands all these freaking giants.
Yeah, he's got his third one going on the wall. So.
Oh my God.
$12 an inch, Bob.
$12 an inch. Well, I hope that boy keeps getting bigger ones.
Yeah.
Get in Dad's pocket. Yeah. All right, guys. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, everybody.
We will let you know when we'll be on again. Right now, I was actually looking at the fact of we're either going to probably go back to Mondays and go with either the 19th or the 26th. So we're going to skip a couple of weeks and kind of play things by ear. We'll definitely probably ramp up to almost a weekly deal again, first part of November, and get you guys. Biggest thing that we're going to plan on talking about then is, the things you need to do to your car over the off season and that type of stuff. It'll be that maintenance thing. My daughter did a little survey with some customers a while back. They wanted to know what was the number one thing that Bob always talks about. And there was probably about 75% of them that maintenance. That's the key, guys. I tell you what, that's the key to speed, making sure everything's working like it's supposed to. Well, have a great night. Thanks for tuning in. We'll talk to you in a couple weeks.
Thanks, everybody.